Hello everybody, welcome back to That Fiction Life. The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L Armentrout is out today. I am so excited to talk about it today. This video will be about this third book in the Blood and Ash series. I do, however, have a spoiler-free review of this series, which I'm going to link down in the description. If you haven't read the third book yet, stay tuned. We're going to do a spoiler-free review first before we dive into. Thank you so much to Blue Box Press and Social Butterfly PR for the review copy. I was able to read this book early to have this up for you on release day. I have so many notes, I don't even know where to start. Book 2 low-key finished on a cliffhanger. So before the book even began, I was already praying for myself because of all the reveals and the quotes that we've seen. I have not been this consumed by a series, I don't think, ever. Yes, I've had my very special books that I would follow to the end of the earth, but something about this series, and I cannot put it into words, it lives in my head rent-free every day. I think this is my favourite in the series for many reasons. First of all, the character development, Poppy's journey from start to finish. Yes, she has had quite a gradual development from book 1 to the sequel, but in this third book I feel as though we saw a completely different side to her. Cass, if you enjoyed Domestic, Cass and Poppy in the earlier books, you will love this one because there are so many moments between them where they actually talk about what's going on and they have a lot of heart-to-hearts, and then all the other scenes which scarred for life by some of them. Kieran was everything in this book. He's my favourite character. The love has only grown stronger since the earlier books. He's so fascinating, and his friendship with Poppy is the best part for me. They give that comedic relief to this quite heart-wrenching series. We get a lot of answers as well, because the first 2 books have planted a lot of seeds, and you kind of think, where is this even going? I'm so confused by this world building because there's so many different creatures that exist that I need a dictionary. But this book revealed so many things that made sense, and something that I really like about the writing style, and I will definitely dive into this in the spoilers with real examples, but with the plot twists, I find that they are very logical. I don't like plot twists that they're just purely for shock value, because yes, I like to be completely shattered by twists, but they need to make sense and there needs to be a kind of journey to them, and I think that this book did this really well. So that's what I'm going to say for no spoilers. I'm going to dive in to all my notes. I've annotated the hell out of my ebook. There are multiple pages, so if you have not read the book, please exit this video because you will not want to be spoiled. Go read the book. Just, you know, drink some chamomile tea beforehand because you'll want to be calm. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. So without further ado, we're going to dive into spoilers. This is your final warning. Okay, so just as an example, this is kind of what we're dealing with. Just. So the book begins where we left off, the Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. Poppy is in this cave-type place, and a certain person has decided to ruin all of our lives. It's a good thing we all hated him, right, in the earlier books. He made me feel so uncomfortable. Alistair, that is. Poppy now has the Wolven behind her, and Kieran starts acting really strange, and immediately I thought, okay, he's under a trance, he's been possessed, what is going on? It turns out he was acting out against Cass because Cass was apparently a danger to Poppy. The mechanics of that scene, this whole first act of this book felt like the ending of a series. You know, it had all the traumatic plot twists and danger and fight scenes as though it was happening at the end of the book as opposed to the beginning, which I think was the greatest thing because I myself find it very hard to get into books when I start them. So the king confirms that they're protecting her. Chaos. When he says, ask yourself why your bonded Wolven is guarding someone other than you, what you need to know now is that they no longer serve the elemental bloodline. It's fine. You know, I feel like Cass and Kieran's bond kept them both sane to some extent based on everything that they've gone through in their lives. So the fact that they lost that, quite similar to how Poppy reacted when she found out that they no longer are connected, It broke me, and Cass was so confrontational in this entire book, but even here he needs to check on Poppy, but none of the Wolven are letting him near her, and he didn't blink as he held Kieran's stare. Alistair is revealed as the big bad of this book. We all saw that coming, but I still hate his guts, and I absolutely died when Cass's father said, "Fight this and I'm sure Jasper, Kieran or my son will be at your throat in a heartbeat." And at this moment, I cannot promise that I would move to stop any of them. I really like Cass's dad in this book, actually. He was a very interesting character, and I didn't really expect that because, you know, they had to be some good in his parents because of Cass. But I kind of expected them to be a lot more colder than they were towards Poppy. Okay, so this is where it gets crazy. Everyone just starts dying around Poppy. And I just kept having flashbacks to Twilight when Bella saw all those dead bodies in her dream and she thought it was real. And I thought, is this even happening? Is Poppy having a vision? But damn, I really thought we were going to have to wait a lot longer to find out that Alistair was evil. I expected him to be the main villain of this particular book, and we will talk about all the characters that we were finally able to meet later on, but I didn't think that they were all going to have a part in this book at all. So Poppy is locked up at Alistair's creepy crypt, and flashbacks and deja vu to books 1 and 2 when she was so many times kidnapped to various cellars and basements. I mean, that girl's really been through it. And I full on thought that it was going to be her brother that locked her in this crypt. And as well as Alistair, he was also going to be revealed and say, "Oh, hello, sister." That was where my mind was heading. So the fact that it was Alistair and then Jensen comes out of nowhere, and I couldn't cope when Alistair said that he's going to give Poppy back to the Ascended. So then my mind went to that direction, and I thought that once again, Poppy's going to go back to that kingdom and perhaps be given to the Queen. So eventually, Cass and Kieran come to the rescue and they save Poppy to some extent because all hell breaks loose in a minute. Kieran's tending to the creepy bone things. He's dealing with that, and then Cass is fighting all the people in the background, and he goes absolutely manic and he breaks some man's spine, and then Poppy's like, I love him. They have the most dysfunctional relationship, but I love it. The scene after that was so somber because Poppy's having a moment and Kieran says, "Are you okay?" And she just whispers, "I'm not a monster." And the way she's kind of dealing with this image that people made up for her, that she's going to be evil and she's going to repeat history, to so to speak, like her ancestors. And throughout the book, she's trying to kind of rein herself in to prove them wrong. And when she says, "I'm going to sit this fight out," and Kieran says, "I want to thank the gods, but now you really have me worried." When we go back to book 1, where Kieran was so indifferent to her existence, to now being worried about her, feels. Poppy never shuts down like this. She doesn't sit out fights. She runs straight into the fire without thinking. And you really see the impact here of everything that has happened to her. Also, when he gives her the cloak, just puts it around her shoulders without saying anything. Oh, I live for them. I love their platonic friendship. Look, we might as well get this out of the way while we're here. So the joining did not happen in this book. I don't know if it still will, because, you know, they explain this a little bit towards the end, that now that Poppy may be immortal and she is a god, but now Cass isn't immortal. So Kieran said that this is going to be reversed. So now they can use the joining to make Cass immortal, right? Am I understanding that correctly? But anyway, I digress. I don't know if I want it to happen now, because at first I thought, you know, just for the lols, you know, why not? So I'm conflicted. Let me know your thoughts below, which side you're on, because I'm undecided as of now. But we'll see. I guess we'll get the answers in the next, but I cannot believe Jennifer has done this. This is the most requested question that she has, and it's still unanswered. When Poppy gets shot with the arrow thing, my heart fell out of me It was just chaos. I don't know what I was reading. Cass's reaction and how helpless he felt absolutely broke me. Look, this was only 13% into the book, and our main protagonist is on the verge of death. And it felt real, because a lot of the time when characters are put into dangerous situations in books, I'm not convinced that it's real, even though I was confident that Poppy would survive because she's the main character and there's still other books to go. I was panicking, and I truly believed that this was real and that she could die. And I think that is just a huge testament to Jennifer's writing, because she made me feel as though she was really in danger with everything surrounding the scene and how Poppy herself was feeling. This line absolutely killed me off. Kieran's hand slipped on my chest and he quickly replaced his palm. That just makes you visualize how much blood there must have been for his hand to slip from the wound. I'm not okay. I'm telling you, this book is something else. I didn't think that Poppy would become one of those evil vampire things, purely because then she wouldn't have emotions, and I actually think that could have been a really interesting point to make Poppy evil for some time. There were so many possibilities because of her bloodline and because of her ancestry. I was dying the whole time because the way Kieran and Cass turned into trained spy mode when they thought, right, emotions, turn off, we just need to deal with this. And when Kieran just says, fuck, okay, we're gonna do this, and they start preparing for Cass to bite Poppy, that was a whole thing. But anyway, when Poppy wakes up and tries to eat Kieran, that was hilarious. The scene after that. I don't think anyone was ready for that scene. So, you know, they're just hooking up from all the weird blood emotions, and Kieran's just there watching them. When he has to pull her away from Cass because she's downright killing him, it was like the snow scene from Blood and Ash and the carriage scene from Flesh and Fire combined. This book was so full of scenes that took the life out of me. And another was when we find out that Kieran cleaned up the crime scene, so to speak, so that neither Cass or Poppy would see any of the blood when she woke up. And I love him so much. We find out these little bits about what he does for them because he cares. I died when they all hugged, and this line, he folded his arms around me without a heartbeat of hesitation, holding me just as tightly as I held him. Oh, I laughed so much when Poppy was the one to kill Alistair. They promised that she's all his. That was a great moment. We have to talk about the heart-to-heart that Cass and Poppy had. I also know that none of this has hit you yet, and that concerns me. You keep telling me you're okay every time I ask how you are, and I know that can't be true. Every single time anyone asked her, she always answered okay. I'm fine, move on. Can we just take it back to the end of the book when Kieran asks her that and she says no? Character development, I'm telling you. So they discover that Poppy has strength and Cass asks her to punch him. Such a good scene. It was so satisfying. Oof, when she smacked herself in the face to stop crying. My poor child. Talking of playful violence, I guess. Why does everyone act like I run around stabbing people? Castile stared back at me and then looked pointedly at his chest. Remember when she stabbed him in From Blood and Ash? Here's the thing with that book. When I tell people that it has amazing plot twists, people always assume that I'm talking about the fact that Cass is the Dark One and he's an Atlantean. We all knew that he was not human and a mortal god. That reveal was merely a really well-written transition through the series. You know, we had the hints. It was quite easy to piece together, and it was satisfying finding out that we all knew that Hawke was something. What we didn't know is how far he would take that hate when he kidnaps her and betrays her, because, you know, it's all well and good that he can be some other creature, but he didn't have to become the villain at the end of the book, and that was the twist that got to me. The fact that she fully tried to murder him, it just turned that book on its head, and it was two villains as opposed to these two cute little heroes who fell in love throughout the book. I am absolutely dying at the fact that Willa is real. She's a real character that we meet in the book. She's mentioned quite early on in the book, but then we fully meet her at the end. I love her character. I think she's such a great addition to this series. The way that Cass keeps bringing up that book in public situations. So we have to talk about this other heart-to-heart that they have. And it's when Poppy's kind of reflecting on everyone that has died around her throughout all of this hell. She says to Cass, "You saved mine," meaning her life, "in more ways than we probably even know." And a small smile appeared, then faded, and I sensed it was more than just what had happened to me. His shame and guilt run so much deeper than that. And I found the world building aspect in this book so fascinating. Yes, it's very complicated, but it was so interesting to learn, you know, how Malik ruled back in the day and how they had all these other deities. And the bloodlines outnumbered the deities, and that's kind of how they became nearly extinct. But they're kind of learning more about the city, and they're going out to share a dinner. I love the slowed down domestic life. Hello. The start of this book was insane, so it was nice to have this slower pacing throughout the whole middle, just to have a change of pace. But having said that, I love the fast paced at the start. It's my favourite type of book to read. So Poppy and Kieran dancing was of course always going to be another favourite scene of mine, but I have to point it out because it was perfection. I loved the meeting with Kieran's mum. He's such a savage sometimes, I love it. Also, something I noticed during this same meeting is Kieran just moves closer to Poppy and she feels his arm next to her. And she's surprised at how close someone can come to her. And that really makes you think how much she still has to get over from what happened to her in the past. You know, you don't get over something like that in mere weeks. So even though she's very, very comfortable with Cass, I think she's gotten very used to the fact that he's sort of an extension of her, as opposed to just being normal people, being able to sit close to her and hold her hand or touch her shoulder. You know, that was just forbidden territory for her in the past. We get another revelation that Malik was Poppy's father. This is what I mean about there being sort of obvious twists that get turned on their head, and I will talk in detail about that later. Okay, so then Ian turns up. I wasn't really expecting to meet him in this book, because like I said, we already had Alistair being evil, we had all the revelations about where Poppy comes from and who her parents may have been, and now Ian turns up. And he reveals to her that he's normal. I must say, I was a little disappointed that he wasn't crazy. We got that with Malik instead, but I really thought that there was something fishy going on with Ian. I don't think that he should have been killed off. I think there was more to the whole situation. I wasn't convinced that he was normal and that he was able to forgo the ascension, and so I'm like, oh, I don't know. But then we go to the coronation of Cass and Poppy. They've decided to take over the role. I low-key thought that this is how the entire series would end, but they do it like sort of like their wedding. It just came out of nowhere and they did it really quickly. So we go to our first council meeting. Miss Willa turns up, and it turns out it was her at the Red Pearl in the very first scene from Blood and Ash. I love connections like that. I knew we were going to see her at some point in the series again. I clicked that she was going to be Willa a page before I flipped. So I turned on the next page and she was like, oh, I'm Wilhelmina. And then Poppy's going insane, putting two and two together. And I really love their scene after that, where she's talking about how Poppy wasn't the only one seeking sanctuary that night. He, meaning Cass, was in need of shelter, one that could bear the weight of his desires, his love, and his pain, and he found it. Right, if this isn't your favourite comedic scene in the whole book, then you are wrong. But I fell on the floor when Cass and Poppy want to ask Kieran to be their official advisor, and he says, is this about the joining? R.I.P. to me, I couldn't stop laughing. So again, we find out another lie, that the queen that raised Poppy is her grandmother. See, we all could have predicted that, but again, Jennifer goes and turns it around, and she is her mother, and Malik was supposed to be her father and it all made perfect sense, but again, that gets blown out of proportion. You know, this whole book was just chaos on wheels. And you know what, I actually am in love with Poppy's personality. When she meets Gianna, and Gianna says, I promise I'm not interested in Cass, I'm not going to pursue him. And Poppy says, good, because if you did, I would probably tear you apart limb by limb and then feed what remained to a pack of hungry barons. I just cannot. Poppy, Savage Queen. I mean, her and Cass are so deranged sometimes that they are so perfect for each other, but at the same time they give me real kind of Jude Carden vibes where they are probably making each other worse. But I love it. One of my favourite parts about this series is, as tragic as it is, I love Cass's backstory because it is so deep and detailed. And that's here Cass and Poppy are talking about her calling him Cass, which he loves. And he says, it was just someone saying Cass or my mother calling me Hawk that reminded me I wasn't a thing. Poppy says, tears of pain and anger filled my eyes. That sounds like me. Whenever they talk about his past, the atmosphere changes in those scenes and is written so well that you feel so connected to these characters. But this scene was something else. So they go to see the Queen, finally. Deep down I knew that Malik was going to be evil. Now again, this could be a ruse and he's just being manipulated, or he was acting in order to, I don't know, somehow get out because he knew that Cass would eventually come for him. I don't know his thought process. The look on Cass's face in that scene. It's actually any scene, you know, Cass cried in this book. When Poppy was dying and he started crying because he didn't know what to do. Pray for me, because that point, you know, it's the same in Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. In my review, I talked about one of the scenes where he just kissed Poppy's forehead. And it's just these little things like that that make you love him. And any times he shows his emotions, you feel so connected to him in those. But in this scene, I just felt it all hit me like a truck. It was overwhelming how, but yeah, so Malik is low-key evil and he's kind of going out with the Queen, I guess. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but her husband's dead now, so who knows. So we find out that the Queen is really Isabeth and... Sorry, what? What do you mean? Everything makes sense now, but I just didn't want to have theories that were blown out of proportion. But this is exactly what happened, you know, everyone had a different identity. Poppy's parents were not her real parents. I actually did believe that her mum was her mum, but she was something else, you know. I believed that Poppy had a false memory of that night that she didn't fight back. Poor Poppy, she has lived a lie. First she thinks she's a deity, then she finds out she's a god. I can't believe she's not on the floor having a breakdown because this is a lot. So we find out that Malik isn't Poppy's father and it's actually Irez, Malik's twin, who is her father, which is why she looks so much like Malik, right? What's really clever about these plot twists, like I mentioned earlier, is they are just so logical. You can, it's like, you know, it's easy to decipher things if you read really carefully, but then they're always turned on their head anyway. You know, we all believe that Malik was her father. That was it. That was the plot twist. And then it's not. And then we find out that we actually met him and he was the person in the cage. And now I have trust issues. Whatever they tell me in the next book, I will not believe until I read the whole thing. As another example, you know, Alistair being evil, but then he dies immediately. I thought we were going to have some kind of massive showdown with him at the end of this book. And that's something that I was a little bit disappointed about, is that there wasn't a big battle at the end. Everything that happened in Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, it was such a good send-off to the next book. And here it was more about the information and the world building. And at this point I was thinking, oh no, you know, what else can happen? Because even though we had a plot twist at the end of the last book, it wasn't a plot twist that kind of traumatized me. It was just a huge shock, you know. Poppy's the Queen, what the hell, why is everyone kneeling? This plot twist of this book was not okay. Cass, going back to those people, especially seeing as they had a lot of heart-to-hearts throughout this book discussing their feelings, and we find out how Cass is still struggling with being seen as a thing as opposed to a person, and now he's back with those people. I kind of thought this may happen. I didn't think he'd get taken again, but I thought something bad would happen to him, because in the last 2 books, Poppy was the victim right at the end each time. And so I thought, it's not going to happen again. It's going to be flipped now, and it's going to be Poppy having to save Cass. But I thought we would get him back. But then I saw that there was only 2% left of the book, and when Kieran and Poppy both say that they're not okay and they go and get the dragons, I actually love that whenever they go to visit one of the gods and they find out they're having a little slumber, but they take the dragons and the guards instead. It was a lot, this book. This whole ending was quite traumatic for a reader. What am I even supposed to do with my life now? Like, Cass, for the next few months while we wait for the next book, we don't know when it's coming out yet, he's going to be trapped with these psychopaths. And Poppy is going to be having a meltdown. I can feel it. I can imagine her absolutely losing her shit. And it's going to be the last straw, because she has endured a lot, and it's all sort of been like little droplets being added to a nearly overflowing beaker, right? That's the metaphor here. And her losing Cass, I don't think it's hit her yet fully. I know she's very emotional and Kieran's there for her, but I think they are both going to absolutely become quite unhinged, even more so than they already are. I remember this one scene I haven't talked about yet, but when Poppy was kidnapped at the start of the book, Kieran says that he's never seen Cass react like that, and that he went absolutely out of control. Poppy's time is coming to lose her control, and I don't know what's going to happen now. I definitely think that there's more to the whole Malik story. I think that him being evil is too easy. You know what? I find this whole Cass's mum being involved in this so sketchy. They seem to all be best friends again, but I don't know if I trust you anymore. Please let me know your theories and let me know what was your favourite part. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I can't believe what I just read. I really hope you enjoyed going on this journey with me. I'm already waiting for the next book. I mean, why should I even bother reading anything else? Truly, why? Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up and leave your comments, please. I want to talk theories. Also, if you're a Kieran fan, let me know. Poppy can have Cass, that's fine. Kieran is mine. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.